Origins of the Gods. Kusum Cave, Skinwalkers, in contact with transdimensional intelligence by Andrew Collins and Gregory L. Little. We'll skip some of the acknowledgments. Preface, we should do that. Rites of the First Shaman by Andrew Collins. Our destination is just beyond the eastern limits of the Mediterranean Sea. The age of the geological terms is the Middle Pliocene, and the date sometime around 330,000 years ago. Gotta have that 33 in there, don't they? I wonder about the year as well. The climate is pretty much as it is today, although the river valleys saddled between the deep rocky hills are much more verdant, much more fertile in nature. Some little way inland, the topography starts to rise towards the east. Its distant horizon crowned with low mountain peaks. Two mountains, in particular, are like the horns of some enormous landscape beast. And for some reason, these draw the eye for longer than is necessary. As the light gradually fades and the full moon is seen to rise from the direction of the Twin Peaks, the ear now catches the slowly rising sound of bizarre vocal cacophony. Bizarre vocal cacophony. It seems to be a mixture of high and low guttural chants produced by the deepest parts of the human windpipe in a manner that would disturb even the most accomplished Mongolian throat singer. This constant noise seems to be coming from within the steep rocky cliff, in particular from beyond the opening of a large cave entrance. Inside burns a fierce fire light. Let's try this again. Inside burns a fierce fire lit somewhere close to the center of a large cavern. From the flames comes a thick, pungent smoke that immediately invades the throat, causing a violent reaction to this unwanted intrusion into the body. Yet very quickly, the effects of the smoke become tolerable as the interior of the cave starts to become a little hazy. Sounds like they're getting high, huh? Maybe. From out of the smoke appears a strange figure, just over 5.5 feet tall, with dark, swarthy skin, deep-set eyes, and a heavy brow ridge, and a mass of coarse, dark hair. He is a man of some power who crouches slightly as he rhythmically stomps on the ground around his feet. A loincloth made of hanging cords and dry reeds cover his genitals, while a tuft of tall white feathers stick almost vertically up from his central parted shock of hair. Sort of say shock of hair. The figure's near naked body is dabbed with white paint to create a series of dots, lines, and rectangles. In his hands are bundles of dry plants that he throws from the fire to create even more thick, pungent smoke, which now becomes intoxicating beyond belief. He is also not alone. As the smoke wafts around the cave in ever-rising waves, it becomes apparent that behind him, a little way from the fire, and in the semi-darkness, are a dozen or so similar individuals. Males and females are present, and like him, they are also slightly crouched in their stance. They sway and sing in unison to create the bizarre vocal cacophony that provides the energy necessary for what the central figure is trying to achieve. His focus is now fixed on concentric rings of stones laid out before him. These are both spherical and polygonal, in shape, and are about the right size to fit tightly in a human hand. They are light in color and made from limestone. At the center of the circle is another polyhedron, slightly smaller in size and blue-gray in color. This one is made of flint and appears important to this strange ceremony. As the vocal cacophony intensifies still further, the shaman, for that is what he clearly appears to be, takes hold of a swan's wing bone, and clenches it tightly in one hand. Still dancing rhythmically on the spot, he cries out above the other voices before entering into a trance state. Staring into nowhere, he looks to be possessed by some kind of animating spirit that has taken control of his bodily functions, allowing his mind to be elsewhere. It is what the shaman experiences next that now compels us, for from his body emerges the vision of a magnificent swan that flaps its wings to rise into the air and out through the cave roof. Free at last, his soul spirit is able to fly at will, encircling about the local hills before heading towards the rising full moon and the twin mountains off in the distance. This is a fictional account, a confabulation inspired by the discoveries being made right now at one of the most exciting archaeological sites in the world. I speak of Quzum, how do you pronounce that? Quzum Cave, near Tel Aviv, in modern-day Israel. Their evidence has emerged of extraordinary and quite innovative technological firsts for very early humanity. They included the earliest canned food, a unique means of preserving the precious and highly nutritious marrow from inside deer legs, bones, the earliest freezers, a unique method of using fire ash and fire ash to store fresh food and animal hides for extended periods of time. The earliest known mass production of precision-made blade tools, the first sustained use of fire within a permanent hearth. And I have an issue with that. I have a hard time believing that in the Middle East is when this first happened. I think that's part of their official narrative, to be honest with you. The first use of fire to temper and to soften stone materials, and the earliest school of rock, where pupils were taught the art of stone napping or naping and tool manufacture. Perhaps more significantly, from the same cave comes the earliest evidence anywhere in the world for the existence of shamanic activity. By the way, this doesn't mean that's where originally it started from. It definitely is a bias towards it, right? The Middle East from this country. This realization stems from the discovery of a single swan wing bone sequestered for the use in what appears to have been animistic practices. Most obviously, these activities involved an individual, someone whom we might call the first shaman, adopting the guise of this great white bird to achieve soul flight. And then it says see plate 35 for artistic impression of Quesum first shaman. The purpose of this action would have been the attainment of otherworldly wisdom from the inhabitants of an invisible realm that, as we shall see, was thought to coexist with the world of the living. The incredible thing is that the highly talented inhabitants of the Quesum cave did not belong to one of the archaic human populations that are known to have occupied Africa and the Eurasian continent at this time. Instead, what slim anatomical evidence we have about the Quesum people, as we shall call them, is that they may well constitute the earliest form of dispersal. The form of dispersal modern humans. I don't know what that means. Dispersal. Okay. Like dispersia, dispersal. Okay. The pre-dispersal modern humans. The forerunners of atomical modern humans, that is, Homo sapiens like ourselves, since they also appear to have been the earliest known exponents of shamanism, and their communities suddenly rose to become arguably the most advanced on the planet at this time. This is all strangely coincidental, to say the least, and raises important questions. Were they among the first people in the world to benefit from the communications with otherworldly denizens? Did these communications achieved through shamanistic activities like those described above start to provide the inspiration that allowed the Quesum people to develop new technologies and formulate ideas on such profound matters as the meaning of life and death, the nature of the soul, and even their connection with the stars? These earliest shamans at places like Quesum Cave, if I'm saying that right, is Quesem. I'm going to say Quesum because I don't know any better. So Quesum Cave were clearly trying to access higher powers, powers that the ancients would come to terms the gods. Across time, completely across time, complete mythologies developed around these powerful supernatural figures. They could control the violent forces of nature, cause changes in the weather and in the oceans, and even shake the earth itself. Other elements of these mythological traditions reflect ontological and even cosmological beliefs, indicating that the earliest ancestors of these prehistoric people came from the stars. More disturbingly, our ancestors came to believe that the inhabitants of the stars and strange realms could appear as physical beings here in this world. Sometimes these beings were invisible and seen perhaps only during altered states or in dreams, while at other times they could appear in what can only be described as material form. All this might sound like the start of an episode of Ancient Aliens, and there is a very good reason for that. This ever popular TV show, first broadcast on the History Channel in April 2010, with new episodes being made every year, has asked important questions concerning the true source of the knowledge and wisdom that has inspired the rise of civilizations worldwide, and the nature of supernatural beings that have coexisted with humankind for many thousands of years. How did ancient man come to build Stonehenge and the pyramids of Egypt? What exactly were Peru's Nazca lines created? And more importantly, did I say that right? No, I didn't. Why exactly were the Peru's Nazca lines created? And most important of all, why did so many ancient cultures and indigenous people come to believe that their earliest ancestors came from the stars? Where did all of this knowledge originate? Was it purely a product of random beliefs and ideas accumulated across tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years? Or has there been a slow drip of knowledge coming through to humanity from very real otherworldly intelligences? Is this what our most distant ancestors came to understand themselves? If so, are such intelligences contactable, not just through shamanistic practices, but also in the knowledge that certain locations across the globe, or plane, depending on how you look at it, appear to produce mysterious lights and other strange phenomena on a regular basis? Are these same sites, portals and points of contact, as they might be described, somehow able to trigger transformative experiences in those most in tune with their inherent energies? Have these transformative experiences changed humankind's spiritual view of life and perhaps even triggered the foundation of major religions, including those of a monotheistic nature? As we will see in part 1 of this book, written by my colleague George Little. Did I say George? Greg Little. I swear my dyslexia. God, it's a nightmare. Anyways, all these ideas were common to Native American peoples, right through to the arrival among their tribes and communities of the first European ethnographers ethnographers in the 18th and 19th centuries. These enlightened Native peoples, I shouldn't Native Americans, these Native Americans, I said it again, these Native peoples, consider my bias is, because I come from America, right? So these enlightened Native peoples would have been able to provide suitable answers to all the questions posed here, explaining how much of their knowledge and wisdom came from otherworldly beings, spirits, ancestors, tricksters, and even the somewhat eerie little people, who bear some semblance to the alien grays of today. This is where these people said they gained the knowledge that helped inspire not just their natural sciences, which included an understanding of hundreds of different plants and medicines, but also the development of their spiritual worldview. It seems to have been a belief that inspired the creation of unimaginably large earthen mound complexes, many of which are aligned to the sun, moon, and stars. Greg Little will make it clear that we ignore at our peril the lessons of these indigenous peoples of the North American continent, since they can provide the key to understanding exactly what our earliest ancestors really did believe about the supernatural world that was thought to surround them at all times. In part 2 of this book, I will provide the earliest evidence of these beliefs, which might well have begun at places like Qizim Cave in Israel as much as 400,000 years ago. Moreover, the most important of all, we reveal the true nature of those, quote, ancient aliens, end quote, that we all so long to understand. What we find is that their existence is almost certainly linked not just with entities existing at the very edge of the electromagnetic spectrum, but even with such matters as plasma, consciousness, quantum realities, and multidimensionalities. This line of investigation, as we shall see, will provide us with compelling and quite mystifying evidence for the true origins of the gods, who are strongly believed to have guided humanity since the beginning. Part 1, All Things Are Connected, by Gregory L. Little. All Things Are Connected, attributed to Chief Seattle. Whether that's true or not is another thing. Seeking the source of the paranormal. November 8, 2019. It was early on a cold and clear skies Friday morning as we began the 100-mile drive from our motel in Farmington, New Mexico to the Hovenweep National Monument, located in the extreme southeastern corner of Utah. The ruins are attributed to the ancestral Babylonian people, commonly called the Anasazi. Anasazi, is that how you pronounce it? The building of the impressive stone constructions at Hovenweep began sometime around CE 750. The name Hovenweep means deserted valley, and the Ute and the Ute language. Ute, U-T-E. Yeah, I guess it's Ute. The large 3-story tall the stone towers at Hovenweep were made around CE 1000. Abandoned, the abandonment of the site began around the year 1250, and within 100 years it was completely abandoned due to prolonged drought, maybe. But even today, it remains a very impressive complex of stone constructions. In short, Hovenweep was a place my wife, Laura, and I really wanted to see again, and was high on our agenda during a 9-day exploration of the ruins and culture located on the massive Navajo Nation reservation. On the way to the site, we talked about how our visits to many sites, including Hovenweep, had gone full circle after a more than 30-year quest. The quest to find the source. Some 31 years earlier, we had visited the remote Hovenweep site. While I was writing the book People of the Web and gathering information for the planned encyclopedia of Native American mound sites, People of the Web came out in 1990 and was supposed to be the follow-up to my first book, The Archetype Experience, which was released in 1984. The Archetype Experience was about Carl Jung's idea on the UFO phenomenon, abductions and contactees, synchronicity, and other archetype and paranormal experiences. Let me try that. Other archetypical, archetypal. How do you spell that? How do you pronounce that? Archetypal. So another archetypal and paranormal experiences. I can't say it. It was clear to me that psychological processes were involved in all of those phenomena, but also that there was something physically real happening. The inclusion of archaeological material in my investigations into the paranormal and the UFO phenomena was not something I expected. It just happened that way, as it has to many others. While awaiting the publication of my first book, I became fascinated with Native American mounds. In 1983, I began a quest to visit every significant mound site known in the United States. I also sought to understand Native rituals, how mounds and earthworks were employed in these rituals, and whether there was anything other than unexplainable psychological processes involved in the outcome of rituals. In particular, I had read a few Native American myths indicating that spiritual beings would, and at times, physically manifest during some rituals and ceremonies. Like many others, I wanted to identify the ultimate source of all of it: UFOs, abductions, paranormal phenomena, and strange beings that walk out of a landed saucer and tell the startled witness that they are from Venus, Mars, or some other planet. Back in 1988, we were in a hurry, and Hovenweep was just one of dozens of sites we planned to visit. We took a hectic 14-day trip that took us to mound and archaeological sites in 12 different states. We rushed from site to site, taking photos and seeing as much as possible from sunup to sunset, but we never spent much time in any place, even at Hovenweep. It's kind of sad. But that's how life is, isn't it? Earth Spirit as the source. I first became aware of Hovenweep ruins in Jim Brandon's 1983 book, The Rebirth of Pan, and I still retain a tattered and worn copy of the book in my now cold down collection. Brandon's book is a compilation of nearly everything unexplained and weird in America. It covers crypto creatures and mounds and earthworks, mysterious inscriptions and significant numbers, UFOs, and humanoid entities associated with UFOs. Brandon suggested that all of these phenomena were interrelated and tied together by a subtle earth energy interacting with human consciousness. According to Brandon, we humans have an important relationship to a powerful earth spirit, but he added that the relationship was an incomplete mosaic, something like a paint by numbers dot pattern of an unknown image in which we have only a portion of the necessary reference points. In addition, Brandon's book was, for me, one of the first books, along with several John Keel books, that somehow convincingly linked together Native American mounds with UFOs. Today, there is increased interest in earth spirit energy and the paranormal, as evident by the hit video series Hellier, Hovenweep, and the Archaeoastronomy. So let's try to get Hovenweep and Archaeoastronomy. And that might be a good place to stop for part one. Then this might take me quite a while to read this book, but I'm telling you from what I've read so far, it's damn interesting. So, and by the way, this image is from Mr. Butterbud, and by the way, that is not a painting, and it's not a computer generated image. That's literally what he filmed in a cloud. One of those lines in the sky as they dissipate and disperse. That's what he filmed in it. Think about that one.
You're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.
If you don't know, you should take it slow.